Hello everyone, I'm Nini FC and this is Blue Lions TV, and today I'm bringing a match review for the Chelsea vs Arsenal game. It was 0-0. I'm not gonna lie, I was a tiny bit surprised that it was gonna end up being a draw, but of course watching the game I have to give credit to Arsenal in this game. It was a quite tactical encounter, I have to say. Both teams are really counting each other out, and also it was really interesting to see how the managers were using substitutions in their advantage. And this is the first time I've seen Conte since he's joined Chelsea really make game-changing substitutions and really taking the initiative with the substitutions. Of course, when Bakayoko comes on, but I'll get into that in a minute. But of course, getting on with the player-by-player review, Courtois, very solid as always. You can rely on this guy, and honestly, the guy's a world-class keeper. In my opinion, I think he's the best keeper in the league. Of course, I know De Gea gets a lot of praise because he makes a lot of Hollywood types of saves, but Courtois, you get that reliability. He's solid, and you can depend on him. The best keeper in the air, shot stopping too, one-on-one. For example, how many times with Courtois, a player's running through on goal, and he's there, stopping the shot or saving it or putting them off. It's a world-class ability, and I think in this game today we could really call upon him, and he made very vital saves. And yeah, good performance. Now moving on to the back three, this is where things get interesting. Now I'm going to kick things off by talking about Gary Cahill. Now, of course, it was unfortunate I couldn't do the match preview yesterday. Honestly, technical difficulties, I still don't know what the hell happened. It was quite frustrating. But yeah, I was going to say I had a feeling that Cahill was going to be playing tomorrow. I just had a feeling that Conte is going to stick with his tried and tested formula, and he sees Cahill as a big part of that, especially when he said before against the game against Carabao that Cahill performed very well, even though he made two sloppy errors. And of course, I think Conte just really likes Cahill. That's his preference. This game today, nothing was really called upon with Cahill. Of course, there were a few times where his distribution with the ball could have been a bit better. Maybe not having to launch the ball long, as always. But in this type of game today, defensively, he worked well with the back three. But again, an issue came up, and it's an issue I keep talking about. That gap on the left was there. And again, I'm seeing Cahill staying too deep at the back three and not being confident enough in pushing out to really help Alonso. Now, I know that at times it looked like, Pedro was doing that coming back. I don't want Pedro ever coming back to help defend with my fullback. No way at all. It looked like it was a combination of Pedro having to do that and Cahill. But again, that gap was there. And how many times, as we always see, were runs being made in behind and we were getting exploited. Bellerin, of course, we got to be serious. Bellerin's a super fast player. Marcos Alonso isn't the speediest type of player. And, it's natural that he will get exposed due to pace. And this is why he needs that defensive support behind him to really help him in those situations. And it wasn't to be. And, of course, we were lucky that we weren't really truly polished enough for some of the chances that were being created on the left-hand sides. But, I mean, it's something that Conte really needs to look in. Now, I know with Bakayoko coming in, will it shore things up? No. Because remember, you guys, as I said last year, Matic had to play that babysitter role where he was situated more to the left-hand side and he was deeper compared to Kante. And I'm thinking, you look at Bakayoko's driving runs and, he really presses high. We shouldn't sacrifice his game because we've got a defender that doesn't like pushing out wide. And I think Conte, as the season goes on, he will have to really make a bold decision, because I do think, maybe not now, but we will be punished for it in the future. It's going to happen. As we've seen throughout previous seasons. As we've seen throughout last season. And it's something that really needs to be worked on. Moving on to David Luiz. And this is the thing. I thought David Luiz was our best defender. As a sweeper at the back, soaks up a lot of danger. His reading of the play is perfect. He's always there to block out those crosses and shots that people never get to. And his distribution was making driving runs. He seemed to, Conte, of course, at the time with Arsenal, they were really pressing our midfield too. So Conte did want one of the back three, whenever they weren't getting pressed by Arsenal's, front three players, to really step out and push into midfield. And Luiz was doing that. And he was giving a good account of himself until after it was a pretty stupid tackle afterwards. Um, typical Luis fashion. No, not typical Luis fashion, but of course, striding out from the back. I think he was being a bit too complacent with the pressure Sanchez was putting on him. Next thing you know, Sanchez has nicked the ball and he's just made a reaction lunge. Wasn't as fierce as it looked on TV because, Kolasinac and Luis were pretty close to each other, but the boots were raised, the studs were up, and, it was a red card. I'm not going to lie, my initial reaction was a bit harsh, but looking at the replays, it was a red card. Is it going to affect us in the future? No, because we've got Christensen, the best under-21 defender in the world, and we've got Rudiger. So defense isn't an issue. That will be fine. But, it kind of put a little tiny damper on Luis's performance. Just that, unnecessary red cards. Moving on to Azpilicueta, and I keep saying this, you guys, he's not looking the same Aspi as he was last year. Now, for example, when Ramsey was going in on goal, it was like Aspi was doing his best Gary Cahill impersonation. His positioning was off balance. He wasn't really trying to force Ramsey away. He was basically giving the space for Ramsey to run into. And it seemed like he was just reacting instead of being in control. And it's weird because Aspi performs decently, performs well, but it's one or two mistakes like that he keeps making per game. And it's pretty uncharacteristic. Moving on to the midfield, of course, we saw Fabregas and Kante. And I was surprised. I thought maybe Bakayoko would get a start. Or I was saying too, before that, I was thinking maybe Conte might even alternate between having, Fabregas being part of the front three, where he's able to play that hybrid role where he can drop into midfield when we need to make three in midfield and, then push up or even playing behind of the front two. That's the flexibility he offers. But, he decided to go with them. And I keep saying this, you guys, it gets hard judging the midfield performance because when you use a wing-back system, your midfield relies on your wing-backs getting forward because wing-backs aren't full-backs. Wing-backs are basically wide midfield players. So if they're not pushing up and creating, a passing option for themselves, that doesn't help the midfield because here's what happens. Once the wing-backs are back, as I keep saying, when teams put pressure and man-mark, then our midfield can get outmanned. So it's always 3 against 2, especially in the first half. And, of course, we did start the game well with, very high intensity. I thought Moses was very good in this game, very good defensively. And, he was really moving to Kolasinac. Moses is a very strong individual. He doesn't get enough credit for his strength. But, of course, here's where Arsenal's tactics come into play because, Arsenal really played identically to, how we played against them in the Community Shield. And, what they like to do is the minute we get the ball to a wing-back, that's when they press very aggressively out wide to try and stop that. And it was getting very hard for Alonso and Moses to really get forward as the game was going on. And, because, the pressure that Arsenal players are putting on the flanks, forcing them to make mistakes or, forcing them to make that passing option to a midfield player and then they'd get tackled and then Arsenal would start an attack. And, it was, it was good tactics. I'm seeing Arsenal play the same way, and I'm surprised that there wasn't really a game-changing plan to really counter against that. I mean, we did see one in the second half. I'm going to get into that later on, so just bear with me. But Arsenal had some good chances in the first half, especially the way they play, how they really utilised the flanks. It was like they were trying to isolate Bellerin with Alonso, so of course they like to, pass it through the middle and then play quick balls out to either flank. So they like to focus play on the left side, then be a quick switch ball to the right-hand side. And that's when usually Alonso's out of position and Bellerin can use his pace to get him behind, which he was doing to good effect, especially in that first half. But if anything, moving on to the front option with Morata, he found it difficult in this game. Mustafi is marking him very tightly, playing very close and was very physical. We've got to realise the physicality and the things defenders are allowed to get away with in the Premier League isn't the same as it is in La Liga. So it is going to be an adjusting period for Morata to get used to it. He has said that he has been on a regime to really improve on his upper body strength and get more physical because you have to in this league, and especially with how we play in our system. And he was finding it very difficult, even though there were times when you can see his ability on the ball, controlling the ball, this and that. He was getting fouled a lot at times, I felt. And also the pressure by Koscielny and Mustafi was too great, especially because our wing-backs couldn't get forward. That meant Pedro and Willian had to play a bit wider. And this is what Arsene Wenger wanted, because, of course, if they're pushed out wider, that isolates Morata. So he doesn't have that options around him to really do the link-up play, because with how we play, we like to have that, you know, quick movement in behind. For example, when Pedro was through on goal, if you guys noticed, it was actually Morata's run when he dropped deeper that then made Koscielny follow him and freed up that space for Pedro to make a run in behind. And really, Pedro, that was by far the best chance of this game. I thought that was going to be a goal. If he had got that early goal against Arsenal, it would have been a completely different game, because Arsenal, they lose their discipline as the game goes on and they push forward more and they become very easy to pick off on the counter-attack. I think that's what Conte was hoping for. Fortunately, Pedro didn't take his opportunity, and again, it's another one of these typical Pedro games where, you know, he does well in 3 games, 1 great game, you know, 1 mug game and 1 bad game, and I think that consistency, you know, ain't good enough. But anyway, moving on to the second half, Conte brings on Bakayoko immediately for the second half. I was really surprised by that. I think it's probably the first time Conte's made a sub right on half time, and of course he had to do that because he realised our midfield was getting outmanned because the wing backs couldn't get forward, and Conte was thinking, well, you know, if there's going to be times where the wing backs can't get forward, I need to have that extra man in midfield that's going to help combat that, because if I've got 3 there fighting against them, then, you know, the wing backs can then slowly, gradually push up. And our second half was a lot more better compared to the first half, because the wing backs were able to get forwards a lot more, and Arsenal were, you know, of course they kept the ball, but then they weren't as dangerous as the first half. You know, but again, credit to Arsenal, they did use a very good medium low block when it came to, you know, pressuring our players and, you know, really trying to hit us on the counter attack. And of course, Bakayoko came on, and, you know, he was good. So, of course, 1-2 tackles, but it is the Premier League, that stuff does happen because it's the nature of how this league is. But again, those driving runs, you know, of course, picking the ball up from deep, beating 1 or 2 men, playing a quick ball to the wing back, it really helps speed up attacks, and it's a, you know, nice addition to this team. And you know, this is a bit of a sign up. I kind of think, imagine in the future we had a midfield of Kante, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and Bakayoko. Maybe that might have to be a video for the future. That is quite tantalising. But he was good when he came on, and he gave us that drive and helps us, you know, combat them in midfield. And yeah, good performance by that. Of course, the main man Hazard finally came on. We were waiting for that, and I was happy that Conte brought on Hazard immediately after Wenger brought on Sanchez for Lacazette, because usually I thought Conte would just wait until the 75th minute to bring him on and give Arsenal some momentum. But by bringing on Hazard, that of course changed Arsenal's approach, because you can't be letting Hazard have as much space. And Hazard was playing as part of a front two with Morata. And you know what? Me personally, I always prefer Hazard on the left, because really, when you have a guy with his ability on the left cutting inside, the amount of options and space he creates, you know, it really is much better compared to playing in the middle. Why? Because especially with modern day football, with its like Catenaccio like approach to defending, it's all about defending in the middle and keeping your shape there. So it becomes harder to really break teams down like that. So when you have wide players that can beat a man, that really stretches them and forces teams to move out of position to then try and combat that. And I'm hoping personally that 3-5-2 isn't going to be a mainstream thing for us. I think 3-4-3 is that formation. With a lot of players getting back to full fitness, we will be seeing what a full strength 3-4-3 looks like quite soon. But, you know, our run so far has been decent in the league. And, of course, it's disappointing we couldn't get out 3 points. You know, both teams are really cancelling each other out. Like I said, it was a very tactical affair. You know, Morata, it is a learning curve for him in this league. It wasn't his fault too that he was getting isolated, because, again, like I said, the way Arsenal play by putting pressure on our wing-backs, very aggressive pressure, it meant that Willian and Pedro had to play a bit wider to really become an outlet for the wing-backs to push on. And, of course, that meant Morata was isolated, which is never a good thing, because he's one of the most important, you know, figures for our build-up play, because fast balls go into him and he plays in a lot of people. So, wasn't to be. But again, it was, you know, it wasn't an interesting, you know, tactical game. And I was a bit surprised to be seeing that type of game today. So, you know, credit to both teams. But anyway, you guys, that's going to end my match review and my match analysis in the Chelsea versus Arsenal game. Let me hear some of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section afterwards. And of course, you know, follow me, Blue Lines TV. Oh, no, sorry. Follow me, Nini FC. That's the Twitter. And follow the Snapchat account, which I'll be releasing next week. Anyway, you guys, thanks for watching. See you later.